Okay, I'm here with Scott Dennison from Dennison Exterior Solutions and Gutter Topper in St. Joseph, Michigan. Scott, thank you for being on the Gutter Grind. I wanted to ask you, can you show us on the mitten where St. Joseph is in Michigan? You're all the way out to the
All right.
right.
Let's see here. It's like that. We're down here, Southwest Michigan. In fact, I'm about a mile and a half from the shoreline in Lake Michigan. And if you go there on a clear day, you can see the skyline of Chicago.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Mhm.
So I understand that you're in the roofing business, you're in the gutter guard, gutter protection business, sell a lot of gutter topper. And about what percentage of your business is roofing, and about what percentage is gutter protection?
That's interesting that you say that because when I originally began, it was 100% gutter protection. And very quickly, I sold so much gutter topper. We had to get into the gutters because I subcontracted that out. And so 100% at that point, which was, 2003, 2004, five at that point. And my father had a home improvement business, and I didn't want to compete on the roofing side with him at his business. And so, and this goes back to the Great Recession. We went from we were the top in sales as far as gutter topper goes for Tony, and across the nation and even Europe and Canada. And then the Great Recession hit. And I can remember where I was on the phone standing on the sidewalk, talking to Tony, telling him that the Great Recession was going to happen. And because I had, at that time, I had 8 marketers who were out doing all these little events. And they would take the smallest little gutter topper machine, put some water in it with a small little table and the sink unit, and had a little sign up sheet, and would talk to people and sign them up for. That's how we generated our leads.
Sure.
And then the Great Recession hit, and it was like Back to the Future. It was the mass layoff. That was back when we would used to go and do the installation because everybody was working, full employment. Everybody was working. Homeowners couldn't be home because they were at work, and we would install the product, leave the invoice in the door. And then I had office staff that would basically chase money all the time. And that's a hard lesson to learn. And I learned it because when we had done all these installations, I mean, hundreds of them. And, we had about 100 and something $1,000 worth of that people owed us from installs, the second half of the payment, and could never collect it. And I met Richard Collar, who was a very successful, I think, of the most successful roofing company owner, who owned a few roofing companies on the East Coast. Met him at a gutter topper seminar, and when I told him what my situation was, that we were owed $132,000, and we had whittled that down. I became a bill collector.
Sure.
And whittled that down to about 85 grand. And he looked at me and says, just when you go back home, tell your accountant to just write it off. And I says, well, what does that mean? He says, he'll know what that means. Just write it off, and stop going out and putting that and chasing negative energy, and put it into new energy to create new sales. And so when that Great Recession hit, to answer your question, is that gutter protection went way down as far as leads. I mean, it was like dropping off a table. That's how I knew when I was on that phone with Tony Iannelli that I'm a numbers guy. I was watching all the leads, people signing up, and all of a sudden it was just like a marble rolling it off a table.
Sure.
Nobody was signing up, and it was hard to collect money. And so that's when I shifted over to roofing. So, and that's where I pretty much stayed. Roofing is about 60% of my business, and the gutter topper makes up the balance of probably not the balance, because gutters specifically have a little section of that.
Sure.
So it's about 60-40 now. Roofing, 60% roofing, 40% gutter protection.
Okay. And what's the total volume you're doing? And
As far as feet,
as far as
uh,
annual sales.
well, everything, it's about, on average, the last 4 years, about anything from 1.6 to 1.8. And at our peak, when we were doing nothing but gutter topper and gutters, we were at 3.2 million.
Okay.
And back then, that's a lot of jobs when you think the average sale was, about 18, 19 to $2,100 for every gutter cover job.
Sure.
So it was a lot of jobs.
Absolutely.
And when that Great Recession hit, Tony saved me. We had 155 jobs going into the winter. When the recession actually started, most people didn't feel it until the previous spring. But we had 155 jobs that I couldn't afford to get the material for it because people had owed me 132 grand and I couldn't, I didn't have the cash. So Tony, God bless his soul, loaned me the money by simply sending me all the material for those jobs. And then I just paid him back over the next few years. So we actually surfed off of that 155 jobs for over a year.
Wow.
It took that long because I had to lay people off because you didn't have the income. And so that's when we flipped over to roofing. And when you go through this process, you learn little tricks. So for contractors out there who are primarily roofing, it doesn't matter really what you do. You sell windows or bath. Just take the sink unit in and set it on the table, and the homeowners will pick it up and they'll start, what's this? And they'll start playing with it, and just be prepared to have what it's going to cost to put gutter topper or solution or whatever you recommend on their gutters. Have the price ready, and you'd be amazed at how much of that work you pick up. More often than not, you'll walk away with those windows and gutter protection. We put that price out there whether they ask for it or not, or even if they have our competitors' product on there.
Wow.
We still do it, and that's how we get all of our work. And of course, that falls into gutters as well.
So the old assumptive close, just put it out there and let them inquire about it, and of course
And they
price it
will
out regardless.
yeah, they'll just automatically, let's go ahead and get that done. And you don't have, and that basis, you really don't have to do a sales presentation. The most that we ever do is just kind of give them the highlights of how it's installed and what the benefit is. And most of that is keeping the husband off of a ladder. And the wife understands that because she waits on him hand and foot now. The last thing she wants to do is him sitting on the couch with a broken ankle or a leg, and now she really got to
Right.
wait on him hand and foot. So that's how you sell that. It sells itself.
Mm-hmm. And so, selling obviously is one aspect of it, but before we can even get to the kitchen table to sell, we've got to generate the lead. And earlier when in the pre-call, you and I were talking, and you were really speaking my language about lead generation and going to all these different fairs, festivals, events, and generating leads for gutter protection there, and also doing some canvassing door to door. So tell me a little bit about what your top lead sources are now and what they have been throughout the years.
Okay, well, when we first started, when I got fired from my father's company and I had to go out on my own in 2003, I started really, sort of canvassing. I didn't knock on doors like a canvasser, but I went in the neighborhoods where all the trees were, and it was upper middle income neighborhoods. Start really trying to focus on those people,
Sure.
and um, I put them in newspaper boxes, little postcards that Tony gave me, and uh, got the door hangers, hung the items on the doors, and when we would have our installers go, they would do that same item right around a job site. You put the job site sign out. So that's how I really started. And then, of course, we got into, because I was a member of like 6 home builders associations, because I cover a large area, all of the counties in northern Indiana, and then pretty much the entire state of Michigan, with the exception of about 4 counties that make up the Lansing area. We would use marketers, that's what we call them, and their job was we would come up, my office staff would find all the little list of anywhere where there's going to be like a car show or a popcorn festival, red flannel underwear festival, anything where you could actually just set up a little 4-foot table and have the gutter machine. And if we didn't have access to electricity, there usually was at that point, you had an extension cord and a clipboard and the sink unit. And, I learned very quickly, you don't put your salespeople in the booth,
Right.
because they'll try to sell the job right there. And that's not the goal. The goal is to create a lead.
Right.
And so the marketers didn't know all the ins and outs. They just knew the highlights and the benefits of the gutter topper, and focus on that. Don't give them any more information than that. And they signed up leads. And that's primarily how we were generating leads. And then, of course, I met a canvassing crew, and I had the canvassing crew out doing door to door. Problem with that is that 2 of them really had, especially one, Lucas, he had the gift. I mean, he literally, I saw it in him, and so I hired him, took him with me for about a week's worth of sales calls, and then he went immediately. As soon as he started selling, he was selling 2 to 3 times as many jobs as anybody else. But a lot of that was because he had the ability, if when the lead would come in and he had one address and he would go to that homeowner and at the meeting and sell the job, then he spent the next several hours knocking on all the neighbors' doors and selling additional work. Now there was a little trouble with that, only because he was just the kind of person he was. He kind of a little attention deficit disorder
Sure.
situation where he talked in circles. So because he sold so much, I had to hire another individual in my office staff to, once he would make the sale, call the homeowner and kind of tidy things up a little bit. And we were off and running. It was amazing. And so then, of course, to be a legitimate contractor back in those days, you also had to be in the yellow pages. And at one time I was spending $300,000 on yellow pages.
Wow.
But I've always been into technology, and this is getting to where I am today. And so, all right, bought a website, had it built. Eventually had a company out of Buffalo, New York, Main Street Host, create a website for me based off of my specifications, and started to learn about web crawlers, web searching, what those, specifically Google, because 90-something percent of the people use them, what keywords were. And so I learned all about websites and how to refresh the website, upload photos, do a blog, enough of those. And so actually now I don't do a couple of home shows, because when the Great Recession hit, it pretty much wiped out most of those little home shows. There's still some out there, but it was, again, I always call it back to the future. There just isn't, there's just not a lot of people signing up for stuff at those shows anymore to make it economically worthwhile.
Yeah,
So
COVID took quite a few of them away as well.
and that's typically, what recessions do. It takes out a lot of your small little competitors, the people that sell paycheck to paycheck, if that's what you want to call it. So pretty much all my leads come from my reputation, referrals, and but mainly my website, because I get so many hits off of my website. It's incredible. But I started that back in 2008, 9, 10 time period. And of course, I always like to to encourage everybody to go to my website, DennisonExteriorSolutions.com. And I believe, because I spent 3 years looking at all of the websites, contractor websites, and I don't think that there's one that even comes close to my website now. It's very dynamic, and it's just a matter of keeping fresh content up on your web page. Don't just put it up there and let it sit, because you will get blacklisted by Google, meaning that they'll push you down because there's no new fresh content up there. So now when people do searches in my area, we're always the top. And in a lot of cases, when you do a search, they do 10 listings per page. We take up 7 or 8 of the listings, different pages of mine on the website. So that's how I get most of mine. Now, what you should also understand is that yes, in 2007-8 time period, we sold 162,000 feet of gutter topper. We were the number one in sales for Tony at that time for a couple of years straight. And when you go, at that time, I had like 48 people working for me, and I was really on the phone running my business the entire time, and I didn't like it because I wasn't out selling myself. Didn't even have time to go out and check jobs, stuff like that. I had people doing that, but it's just not the same. So when the Great Recession hit, it's like, okay, I've been number one. I don't need to. I don't want to. I can go there again if I wanted to, but I don't want to. I'd rather have a smaller company. I'm actually. You learn how to do more with less, and so I'm more. Instead of having all these leads come from the entire state of Michigan, I have more leads in a concentrated area, simply mainly by taking care of the website.
Yeah, that's great. I noticed on the website that you were a 2021 Super Service Award winner from Angie's List, and I know that can help with
Yes.
credibility, help with sales. But I mean, is it helping you generate a lot of leads?
Yes, I get I receive probably 6 to 12 leads every week. Now, granted, I'm a much smaller company now, and I prefer it to be that way. I wouldn't mind being a little bit larger, but I finally, my son came to work for me, my youngest son, because he's got the gift. He can walk up to anybody, and within 5 minutes, he's like your best friend. And so I've spent time teaching him, and I pretty much he does a lot of what I used to do, and so that's freed me up to set appointments for installation, which we can get into in a little while. Manage and make sure my website is being done properly. Then I hired my daughter to do all of my social media, write blogs for me. She doesn't understand the business, but that's what I wanted. I wanted that angle of being like a homeowner and not understanding the intricacies of gutter topper. So she's learning, and that comes across in her writing as far as the social media posts and blogs and whatnot. And then I do my own blogs too.
Okay. And so let me ask you, you have, quite a bit of, lead generation that's digital. And in the past, what you did was a lot more face to face and out there getting it, knowing that we were probably in the face of another, slowdown, or maybe not quite as much of a recession as we saw in the past, but interest rates are up, inflation's up, and consumer demand is waning. What strategies do you have in mind for combating that? Because I know in the past you went more towards roofing, and is that a strategy that you have planned, or do you feel like a lot of people do, that gutter protection's at such an average ticket size that it really does well in a down economy compared to a lot of other projects?
Yeah, well, yes. Now the reason why I went from 100% gutter topper to 60/40, 60 being the roofing, was only because that's the way the economy went at that time. My dad's business is closed up, and so I'm not even a competitor of them anymore. And so I was smart enough to buy my dad's. After a year, you have to wait a year. Bought my dad's phone number, so I get all those phone calls from people who think they're calling Bob Dennison, now calling Scott Dennison. They don't realize it, but you learn little things. Um, so that the economy really changed that. We've still, we've always been able to do about 18 to 20,000 feet in gutter protection, as opposed to the 160s we were doing back in 2006 to 2009. And that was just a function of the economy, and then me wanting to have a smaller, more efficient and more profitable company. So um, how I would do it is what I still do. I still do it every year. Is that you've got a database, if you've been in this business for a while, is you then remarket back to your existing companies, customers. So, for instance, what I've always done is every spring, um, I take all of the people who we had sold gutter topper, or even now leaf terminator, anything that interacts with the shingles. And we send out an oversized postcard to that list. And of course, my list now is like 3 or 4 thousand people. Um, and for others, it might be smaller than that, but you always want to market back to them. And we sent out a postcard that says, I have gutter topper at the top, big bold letters. I have gutter topper. What do I do if I need a new roof? And then we put the language in there about, if anybody else touches the gutter topper, voids the warranty. So those people call us back and say, um, well, I need a new roof. What are my options here for maintaining my warranty from gutter topper? And so that's easy. Okay. So if you don't want the roof, now we charge $9 a foot for going out and removing. So we make 2 trips in that case. We go out, remove, and save their gutter protection. They have the roofers come in and roof, and then we go back and put the gutter, whether it's gutter topper or whatever, put the gutter topper products back on, and so we're making money. All right, that's one way. The other thing is that if you do roofing, now you've got an opportunity to do the roof.
Absolutely.
And most homeowners nowadays want to hire one company, and that's almost a lay down sale. Now, granted, I used to cover a much larger area, and technically I'm still responsible for those areas, and we run those leads. But I charge them accordingly. If I have to go over to Detroit, I mean, I don't go looking for those leads, but if it does come to us, then we charge accordingly in our per foot price. We don't do roofs over there, but if it's within an hour and a half of Southwest Michigan, sometimes 2 hours. If they live way out in the boonies, like some people do up north, um, we'll go do the roof. And I just put the guys up in a hotel motel, and they're there for 3 or 4 days, and they get paid to do that. And the homeowner, they want somebody they can trust to do the installation. So always remarket back to your customers. And then of course, like the little squirrel referral program, we've always done that. You simply, once the job's done, and the way we've got it set up is that we're going to come out of there with a 5-star rating. And when you get hundreds, we're almost up to 300 5-star ratings, and if you added up all of our competitors, they don't even equal 50 or 60. So people see the information on the internet, they pretty much pick who they want to hire. It's just a matter of, can they afford you? And so if you set the system up where they're going to be a satisfied customer, they're going to get you more work.
Yeah.
The neighbor, you learn how to do little things. So what I was paying my daughter to do is, when we would sell a job and complete a job, one of my jobs is to go out and I inspect the project after a week or so after it's been paid for and a job's been completed and paid for. I use my drone. drone $750. You can take beautiful photos of the products. In fact, I know that a lot of the gutter topper digital marketing are photos that I gave them to use. Um, you simply take a lot of photos. Um,
Video,
then you've got social media is free. It's just a matter of paying somebody to do it. And
sure.
I started off doing it myself, and then I uh, had my daughter do it because she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, and I could afford to pay somebody to do that that was more in tune with the older people. It's Facebook. The younger people, there's other social media like Instagram, for
TikTok.
most women. Yeah, yes. And so she knows all of that. So that's what she does. And so you then create leads from that. So going back to recession, money gets tight. If you do excellent quality work, and that's got to be your main goal, doing it not only to customer satisfaction, but manufacturers' requirements. You show people that you're going to get the high ratings. People are going to seek you out when money gets tight. And just a natural evolution of charging people, um, making good money. I used to sell gutter topper at $12 a foot. Learned really quick that price really doesn't matter as long as you build value in the product. So we
Right.
went from 12 after learning this sales method. Um, we came back and we were selling it for $21 to $28 a foot, and still do. But there's certain little things we'll probably want to talk about that in the sales part of this, but and how you get there. Um, but by doing that, building value in the product, when times get tough, your typical customer at that point is going to be upper middle income people because you care about the quality. They're really not, two or three thousand, $4,000 in new gutters and gutter covers is really nothing to them. They just want it done right to beautify their home, keep them off the ladders, and so you can do that. And so you learn how, like I did, learn how to do more with less and just be more efficient with your marketing.
Well, it's
Um,
funny how you sound a lot like me with respect to the fundamentals of lead generation. I believe there's four R's. It's repeat, referral, radius around your job sites. Now, radius can be going door to door. It can be social media around your job sites. It can be keywords for specific neighborhoods online, right? And then, of course, when you've got your repeat, your referral, your radius, then the online reviews makes it all perform even better.
yes, yes. And so your radius marketing, what we do is when we sell a job, complete it, I have those beautiful drone photos because it gives you the beautiful, unique angles. My daughter then uh, builds a post for those based off of those photos or that project. And then you market right around that with Facebook. Okay. But then because I are on the roofing side, because we sell so many roofs, Certainteed has, because I'm a Certainteed contractor, recommended contractor, they have a bunch of programs that are available where you can actually go in and buy some of their marketing services. So I used to have my daughter. I bought. Used to pay for AT&T. It's called White Pages, and she used to go in and get all the addresses right, single family homeowners right around that installation, and she would send them an oversized postcard about gutter topper. Now I have found out this company through Certainteed is going to do it, is started to do that for me here this last fall. And for about $220, they'll send out 200 postcards right around that installation. So I have that going for roofs and gutter protection. And now my daughter, that's freed her up because that used to take up most of her time. So what she's filled that void with is doing more social media posts and blogs, which Google eats that stuff up, and that gets you higher rankings.
Yeah. So we've talked quite a bit about different ways to generate leads, for gutter protection, roofing, that type of thing. I was curious, you're one of the few companies that offers a complete kind of menu of gutter protection options. You offer gutter topper, but there are other products like needle guard and leaf solution, things like that that you offer. And how do you, in the sales process, how do you funnel it down or narrow it down and help the customer, advise the customer to select the right product for their home? Is it based on the shingles they have, the debris, or combination thereof?
It's debris. We only market the gutter topper, um, and that is because that's where I started, gutter topper. And then we use the ratings from Consumer Reports back in, I think it was 2008 or 2010 at some point. Um, and if you look at those ratings, gutter topper was rated the #1 solid metal gutter cover. And that's what we tell people. It's the #1 solid metal gutter cover based off of Consumer Reports. Now, we don't put that in any writing advertising because you can't use Consumer Reports in writing, but we just simply say a consumer um, magazine because you can refer to it in a generic sense. So we basically surf off of that, and that gets us in the house. So when you get to the house, that sales method is you don't just knock on the door and let them know that you're there and then measure everything. No, you get them out of the house. You simply knock on the door because they're expecting you because you've set the appointment. You reach your hand out and shake their hand or ask them to come out and give you a little tour around the house because no other contractor will do that because most contractors treat it like a paper route and just leave the estimate without talking to somebody. You get them out of the house, you walk around the house and you point out certain things. You let them point it out, and then you can add to it. And so by the debris in the trees, obviously if there's pine needles, that's when you shift things over to the needle guard. If you've got a huge house with huge valleys, we don't really do a lot of Terminator. Some companies, that's pretty much all they sell, which is fine. But you do the same thing. You just, if they've got pine needles, the pine needle, the long pine needles specifically, they can eat the Terminator up. Same thing with the gutter topper. So you have to shift them over into the other product. We probably, the footage wise, probably Solution is the largest as far as feet footage that we sell of the three that we do. Terminator, we only use it in certain specific situations, like if they have a metal roof and the water is flowing down the roof at a much faster rate, obviously. So we just shipped them over, but um, Solution, gets into, you fall back on it. Solution is not something that we go into the home to sell. It's a fallback position. So we price it accordingly. So it's basically about a third less, and then gutter topper. And so if price becomes the issue, and it's always the bottom line, but if you've sold it correctly, they usually will take your recommendation and will even bite their tongue or what, they'll write the check for gutter topper. But if they can't do that, then that's when you recommend Solution. You talk about the benefits and how it works, and usually you can make some money coming out of the house with that. On the roof side of it, we always show gutter topper, but depending on the cost of the roof, um, you really have to make an assessment. We're fortunate enough in our area. Um, there is a website called Beacon. I'm not really sure of the website address. My office staff takes care of this, but we know what the house is worth before we even go there. And so you already know, okay, can they really afford the gutter topper or the Solution? So you're, at least in your mind, you're prepared to move to shift to something because of economic reasons. not because of debris. But always we go in there focusing on the gutter topper because you can use the consumer reports ratings based off of that, and of course the PRI asphalt technology testing, independent testing too. We use that all the time.
So you've mentioned that, the sales process has evolved for you. Originally, it was more of, the bidding extreme, if you will, where you're just kind of going out and visiting briefly, measuring and bidding the project. And now you're at a much more extreme end of the spectrum with respect to methodology and a step selling process. Can you tell us a little bit about what some of those steps are that are really important? I know you mentioned your sync display and demonstrating, because I think before anything can be
Sure.
appreciated, it must first be demonstrated. And so, can you tell us a little
Yes.
about that?
Sure. Um, we can get into specific pricing, or not necessarily numbers, but on how you want to price things out in front of the customer. But I'll just give you a specific thing of how we do it, and it's basically professionalism. When the lead is generated, a lot of the leads, ironically, people will send you the request on from our website or send me an email, or they will, in addition to that, they'll also call because the phone numbers are there. And so when we call them back, we're briefly explaining what we require. We set the appointment, but we don't set the appointment unless all decision makers are present. And so now, on the roof side, it's a two-step process. We have a measure call where we go out and meet with them and give them the brochures, and uh, uh, I've got a booklet that talks about all of our products, our reputation. It's got referrals, all of that stuff in there. It talks about how we pretty much handle everything. And then we measure and inspect, and then we go back a separate appointment and do the proposal review, because a roof's got a lot more involved. And you're talking, when you're selling anything from, $25,000 to $50,000 roofs, all of our roofs we sell right on the spot at that review meeting. And so it works. People will hand you that $8, $10, $12,000 check for the first third, because we break it up in thirds. But for gutter topper, you set the appointment and make sure that the office staff knows to make sure that the requirement is. And the requirement is designed, that we just tell people, it's designed to assure customer satisfaction and protect our 5-star rating. And that's why we require it. And they understand that. It's very hard to have a 5-star rating and to attain it. There are steps involved. And the steps are not something that we just came up with. It's the customer taught us that. This is what they require us to be a satisfied contractor.
Sure.
Because that's, most people will go on the internet and they'll look at contractor ratings. So that's the first thing. Up front, you set the appointment, you go, and you always want to be on time. That's the first impression. Always be on time. And if something comes up and traffic is going to delay you 4 or 5 minutes, you call and let them know that I won't be there until, appointments at 1 o'clock. I'll be there at 1:10. And they appreciate that, because that's big, showing you're being professional and you're taking into consideration their important time. But either way, they're still inviting you to their home. So when we require a yes and no, I say that in my head, they're inviting us to their home. So when you get to the home, you don't just immediately go inside the house. You knock on the door and you get them outside. That's a lot of people will go inside and they'll see a picture on the wall and they'll start talking about, the little warm up thing that you do, that salespeople do. Well, this is the perfect way of doing it. You get them outside, give you the tour around the house. Now, one house, you understand that it's really not much different a house, blah, 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 blah. But to them, none of the other contractors did any of this. They didn't ask to go outside and talk about their system, to inspect it with you so that you can point out things that they didn't even see. And so, it takes like 5 minutes. You're walking around the house, and then you ask to go inside and sit. And when you go inside, you got to be prepared. You should have some kind of booklet, pre-printed booklet that we hand all of our customers that has our license and insurance on a little piece of paper that's on a different color so it sticks out like a sore thumb. That's in that little brochure, but the brochure basically talks about all of the features and benefits of gutter topper. It has how you run your little mission statement, um, little things, and it talks about the other products that you do. Because if they hire you to sell to put a gutter topper on their home, they may hire you for the other. They probably will, as long as you end up with a 5-star review or they're satisfied customer. Because most people don't leave reviews, but then there's incentives that you use to get a review out of them. So when you go inside, you sit down with the homeowners. Um, you, well, for us, it's putting the sink unit right on the table. We usually have an iPad that has the gutter topper video on it. Plus, it has a little slideshow that we go through with them. We sit and talk about how we approach, before we go outside and measure and inspect your gutters in more detail. Um, we go through and talk about the company, and then we also will show them how the gutter topper is installed. And then there's the price list. And with the price list, we charge for everything. Okay, so let's talk about gutter topper. When we install gutter topper, um, while we're installing gutter topper, we do a tune-up of the existing gutter system. So that is, if they're not replacing their gutters, we're going to tune it up. And there's a charge for that. That tune-up consists of cleaning it out. It's not free. Got to pay somebody to clean those gutters out, because you'd be amazed at how many people will ask that question. You're going to clean my gutters out before you put the gutter topper on, right? Well, of course. Yeah. So there's a charge for that. So, we talk about the tune-up. The tune-up is cleaning the gutters out. If there's any hangers that are loose, we tighten them up. We may add some hangers where the gutters need a little extra strength. We reseal all of the seams, and then that's while we're installing the gutter topper. So there's a tune-up charge. We also uh, charge extra for end caps. We use, if there's any inside corners, so we use the B1 diverter specifically. And so there's an extra charge for that. Some contractors, when I was originally taught this method, there could be a little upcharge for like second story or third story. We don't, my company, we just don't do that. But you could, and that's understandable. People understand that it's going to cost more 2 stories up or 3 stories up as opposed to a 1 story. So all of those have extra charges, and you have that on a pre-printed form or sheet. That's typically we put that in like a sheet protector, clear cellophane. So at the top, it's got the regular price, and below that, it's got the discounted price. So we go in and we discount, all right? And it could be, and historically, we've used that Consumer Report testing, because they also publish, I don't know who they called at the time, but they did. And at that time, back in 2010 or so, it was like $21 a foot. So we actually add to that number, because there's been inflation a little bit, and certainly the last year there's been a lot of inflation. So we bump that number up a little bit, and then that's what we discount off of. So that's where we start as our price. And then the discounted, so I'm just going to throw a number, let's say $21, because that's the old published price of gutter, what Consumer Reports came up with for gutter topper. We would discount X amount of percent off, and that might bring it back down to maybe $15, $16 a foot. But when you add in the other little extras, which are also discounted, by the way, the B1 diverter, first story as opposed to second story, charging for end caps, the tune-up fee, that will build that price back up And typically, historically, you'll end up above $21 a foot, or you might be, you know, of course, every house is different. It might be back up to 18, 19, $20 a foot. That's the way that that method is designed. And so when you put that the pricing sheet in front of them, you just don't put it out there so that they can see everything. You kind of cover it up with a piece of paper and you go through line by line, and you disclose the price so that they don't just immediately go down to the bottom line price as far as um, what it is on anybody's house. So you take them right through that, and then you say, okay, I'm any questions? And then they typically say that they don't have any questions. You say, okay, I'm going to go outside and measure, but I'm going to keep you entertained here while I'm outside. And there's a little important video that will tell you a lot more information about the gutter topper part of the product specifically. And so you start the video. Now, I don't recall how long the video is. So, and I think that video was originally designed to based off an average time of you going outside and measuring. And so I've added some slides to that, and then it segues into the video. But then you go outside and you measure, you do your little drawing, you price everything out, and you're using basically that same price sheet um, on a black and white piece of paper, and you fill out the regular price, you fill out the discounted price, and then when you go back in, you've already left in that clear paper protector the price list, so you know what's going on. They know about how many feet they have, and they may have been told by a previous contractor how many feet of gutter. They're already figuring the price out. So price conditioning, boom, they know just about ballparking it where they're hoping you're going to come in at. And the other point is you're not making the price up. They could literally take that
Sure.
pricing form outside and measure their own gutter system and know what it is. So it takes out any dishonesty on your part, fudging the numbers or anything like that. So when you go back in, the second half of that, the slideshow that's on the iPad that isn't in with the video, gutter topper video, is to we go through and we show our competitors' products. Okay, we don't beat them up or anything like that. The pictures speak for themselves. We just talk about the differences between gutter topper and these other products, and that's when we use the independent testing for PRI Asphalt Technologies. Take them through that so they understand it. So what you're doing with that, and that might take 5 minutes. Okay, what you're doing with that is that you're eliminating your competition, because when you become comfortable talking about your competitors' products, and again, it's not to trash them, it's just to show the differences in the way the products work. That I mean, used to have. I don't go out and do the sales anymore, but when I did, a lot of times those people would mention that they're going to call their competitor and cancel the appointment. Okay, because you're going to walk out with a sale. So after that's done, you go through and you talk about the warranty, the safety, and then of course you then pull out your estimate form that has all of the numbers on them, and you hold your piece of paper up there and you take them right through the measurements. So you're disclosing the regular price for the gutter topper, the tune up, and you take them down. They show that, and this is the total for the total based off of the regular price, and then you go through the discounted pricing. And so when I'm pulling that little form out, I typically say that I'm going to show you the regular price first, so don't faint on me. And that usually gets a little chuckle. You just say something humorous, and then you go right through it, and they say, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna if I make my decision today," and you make that very clear before you walk outside to measure, is that in order to receive the savings, because part of those savings are based on me not having to come back and get a signature. Sure. We don't do fax or email or anything like that, because we have to come back. We're going to going to have to go back through and make sure we're all on the same page, but it's fresh in their memory. All of those savings are part of the discount. Save me gas going traveling now is double what it was, and everybody understands that. So it's part of it. And generally, when you use that method, you're going within, and this whole process only takes on average about 40 minutes. By the way, if you exit out all of the the little chit chat, about it's sunny out and how what the weather is and the warm up and all that little stuff, it's about 40 minutes.
Sure.
And certainly within an hour, you're done. And I've had them go an hour and a half. But that's only because we talked about different things, or the sale had actually been made a half hour ago.
Sure.
So that's basically the sales method.
Yeah.
Of selling.
Well, we've talked about lead generation. We talked about selling. One of the things that really, hinders people in the gutter protection specifically is service issues, and there's some common ones, and they struggle with dealing with them. Can you tell me a little bit about what you think really hurts gutter protection companies the most, and has them kind of even getting out of the category and focusing on other products as a result?
Yes, exactly. And I know from talking to other contractors and Tony and Mick over the years, probably the number one reason that contractors stop dealing with gutter protection is because of the callback, the service calls. They don't know how to deal with it. And so what I've always done is I do all of my contacts with my customers via email. Some of them text, but majority I require email, because when you're replying back and forth, you've got a history of what was promised, what was said, and putting things in typing and writing keeps everybody honest. And you can go back and remember what you promised. It holds everybody accountable. So that's where I start with. So you start up that communication back and forth. Because you want to make sure you're being completely honest with people. So when someone does call or email, I then do two things. I have a pre-made email that we send out. You just click it's a signature. Some can be a template depending on what kind of an email program you have. It's already pre-written, and it simply asks them two questions. Number one, has there been any roof work done performed since the gutter protection was installed? And number two, I have a photo of probably the number one callback for gutter topper, and that is the debris getting dried right in this little area on the gutter topper. And I have a photo of that. And I said, does the gutter topper look anything like this? And that does two things. It's typically somebody that didn't get an immediate call back from 3 or 4 days or a week later when they've got overflow. It's usually because they didn't rinse off the gutter topper, and so then there's a little pre-made email that if they answer that question, yeah, it looks like that photo, there's debris stuck in there. And a lot of people think that it's actually overflowing from the inside, and it's not. And part of that, in the warranty, it does say that, if you get debris that's been washed down to the very edge and then it stops raining, so not enough water flow to push it off onto the ground, it can dry and get stuck there. And so in part of the warranty, it states that periodically you have to go out and rinse it off. And it's really simple. And I learned all of this not from a gutter topper. I learned it from an 85-year-old lady in South Bend, Indiana. I was across the street making a sale, and she flagged me down after I made the sale. And she says, I want to show you something. And I went in the front door, out the back door, and she goes, are you familiar with this problem with gutter topper? She goes, in fact, here's how I handle it. She rinsed it off. And I said, no, this goes back when I first, couple of years of selling gutter topper. And I learned that, and that's why it's listed in the warranty. Periodically, you have to rinse it off because the dirt gets caked on there. And that doesn't happen on most gutter topper. It's just in certain situations that it happens. It happens on my own house, but I never have to climb a ladder or anything like that. Even if it's on the second story, I just use a nozzle, sharp spray, and it sprays it off. In fact, the original Ronnie, the original gutter topper installation trainer, I think they used to, when Tony's original franchise or dealership in his own in Cincinnati, I think when they made gutter topper sales, they actually gave people a little nozzle so that they could rinse. It was part of the sale, so they could rinse the gutter topper off. So that's the number one reason. Number two is you get some installers, some lazy gutter companies, when they'll install the gutters on, let's say, a straight run of the gutter. Let's say the run is 50 feet. When they run the gutter out of the machine, it'll be 50 feet 2 inches, or 50 feet 4 inches. And so when they install the gutter, it it extends about an inch or a couple inches beyond the end of the fascia. So when you put your end caps on gutter topper, you've got to remember to crimp the back or cut a little piece of aluminum from another part of the gutter topper and close off that little hole, because if you leave a hole about the size of your thumb, the little sparrows and the finches, the birds will get in there, and then they build a little bird condominium. So that's the number two, and that's really easy. It's just a matter of training your installers to not do that.
Sure.
The first one with the debris is simply it may only happen on certain homes, so that's just educating the homeowner. The third thing, or the second question in that first email that I send homeowners, is if there's been any roof work done. And a lot of people, even though I send out those postcards, they'll still have a roofer come in and do roof repair, or they'll have a new roof put on, and they mess the gutter topper up. Now, when I say mess it up, it's usually they don't bang it or dent it. They simply don't remove it and nail their shingles right on top of it, but they manipulate it enough so the water ponds on it or doesn't flow over it properly, so you don't get the proper water surface tension. So then, hey, that's a moneymaker. Now you're going, in order to restore that gutter topper lifetime warranty, we have a fee. Sure. And that is $9 a foot. We'll come out, take it off, and reinstall it, and your lifetime warranty is up and running again. That very rarely happens. So you just have to have pre-made emails and stand behind your word, and because it's your responsibility as a gutter topper dealer. If you do those little things, you'll eliminate a lot of the callbacks. But make your customer prove it. You know, they'll claim I've got a leak, and they think they have a leak when they don't have a leak, or the water's overflowing and it's not.
Sure.
So what I do is email is really easy. I just take a screenshot of the little layout of their gutter system, which the sales rep made when he was there to sell the project, and I take a screenshot of that, send it to them with that first email, the first two questions, and I ask them to identify, circle it, where, or draw an X or highlight wherever their problems are, and then send me a couple of photos standing back, 30 feet in the yard, so I can see what area that they're talking about. Because with the photos, then you can say, oh, well, you just need to rinse it off. And that negates most of the callbacks. There are certain situations that you do have to go out. There's some elderly people that, can't get up. They don't want to clean it off. All right.
It's the same thing in any portion of the home improvement industry. You get customers that call up in the window business that think the condensation on the inside pane of glass is a result of
it's the humidity in the house.
Yeah, it's humidity in the house. Or you get people that that have mold and mildew growing in their new bath, and they think it's the fact that the product is not antimicrobial as advertised, when in reality there's so much soap scum, or they're using the wrong cleaning agents. So you really do have to hold your customers accountable. And
exactly, make them do a little bit of work to prove it, and that's you're trying to save everybody time and teach. Okay, something was installed improperly. Hey, you have to stand behind that, and go and fix it, but investigate it first. So in a worst case scenario, when you're installer, you send somebody there to go fix it, they know what to look for. The photos tell us the little highlighted area or circling the little layout of where the problem is. And that's how you eliminate a lot of it. Now, yeah, we probably do in a year, probably maybe 30 service calls, but that's only because I have, over 7,000 previous customers.
Sure.
And but you learn, you get up a little system, and the eval is so easy to do.
And those can be revenue opportunities, getting back and face to face with your customers. You can sell them a roof or something else that you may have in your product mix.
Yes, because you stood behind your work. There's the old rule of thumb. You take two houses sitting right next to each other, identical roofs, identical gutter layout. There's just a reverse of each house. And one house you can have no problems at all. The other house you can have a problem or two, but if you corrected it, that homeowner where you went back and corrected it will sell you more projects than the homeowner that didn't have any of it.
Right.
It's amazing how that works.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Scott. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and you've really run the gamut on the gutter in the gutter game here, as far as marketing, lead generation, sales, installation, service, and I think there was a lot of value for the listeners. So I appreciate you being on the gutter grind, and look forward to talking again soon.
And if any of the contractors out there have any questions, they can email me at scott@scottdennison.com, and I'd be more than happy to help anybody work through the situation and how to become better and successful at it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Scott.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you. Okay.